Hello and welcome to another Comics Burst from the Full Force podcast, sponsored by Distant Planet Comics and Collectibles, where we take an in-depth look at the newest G.I. Joe comics and related titles of the week, with me as your host, Chris Wholemeal Bread Game McLeod, aka Diagnostic 80, and joining me for this episode is Brian Garden Shed Game Hickey. They're both dead game puns. You like them? You like them, don't you? On this instalment of your absolutely favourite kind of burst, we look at issue 2 of Snake Eyes Dead Game as we attempt a huge catch-up of all the comics we've left behind recently. So without further ado, let's get stuck in, shall we? Garden Shed Game, that's a good one. Right, superstar creator Rob Liefeld's action epic hits a new high. Snake Eyes races against time and each other? What does that mean? So just read Snake Eyes races against time and each other. That makes no sense. There can be only one winner, but no limit on those who fall to the Dead Game. And it's quite fitting because Dead Game has made 0 sense so far. Story art Rob Liefeld, script dialogue Chad Bowers, inks Adelso Corona, colours Federico Blee, letters and world design Neil Uyatake, editor John Barber, and assistant edits Megan Brown. Right, let's start with the covers on this one, Brian, and we'll start with cover A, and we've got a Rob Liefeld, Adelso Corona on inks and Federico Blee on colours, but it's a Rob Liefeld colour effectively, and that is Snake Eyes in like attack pose with 2 swords, Scarlet in the background on the deck. We're in some sort of jungly base setting, but it's effectively what's going on in the issue, which is, you know, that's acceptable, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean it's pretty much on point for it's one of the scenes straight out of the comic. It's a I think as a cover it reveals what's kind of happening in the issue.
Yeah,
it's also it's a nice piece of artwork. I don't think this particular cover is the strongest of, say, the vast array of covers that are produced for this particular issue, but it's a good cover, and it's nice artwork. If you like Rob Liefeld's style, you're going to dig this. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, this is not like Dead Game issue 1 where we had like 40. It was a high end amount of covers, but there's still quite a few here, and we do also get another one from Rob Adelso, and this time colours by Omi Remolante. And that is this kind of more like, red background, Arashikage phased tattoo in the background. Symbol in the background. A lot of smoke going on, and then Snake Eyes just, with a pistol and a sword. Thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, I like this. I actually prefer this to the variant or the cover A. That kind of exaggerated anatomy that Rob Liefeld, that's kind of a trademark of his style. That's something that it reminds me of the work of Simon Bisley. I'd be a big fan of Simon Bisley's work on the likes of Slanya or the ABC Warriors.
Big time.
He even looks a little bit like Joe Pineapples from the ABC Warriors in this particular kind of scene here. So I'm kind of digging this cover. I think it's pretty nice, and the colour work on it is pretty tasty too. So yeah, cover B so far got the thumbs up for me.
Then we move on to the retailer incentive, which is effectively the same as the first cover, but they've put Snake Eyes in red, and that will become more/less evident when we go through the issue as to why that is the case. But yeah,
that's one of my questions, Rob Liefeld.
Don't worry.
I've got questions.
Don't worry, we'll get to that, and I think it's worth pointing out when we do get to that. But yeah, I actually do like Snake Eyes in red. Snake Eyes in red is dancing with me.
Very good.
Cheek to cheek. Yeah, this is hilarious. But I like the red. I like the kind of white Arashikage logo on the shoulder. What are your thoughts on this version of the cover?
I like this. The red Snake Eyes is pretty cool. And I think the only reason why we have a red Snake Eyes in this issue at all is because it's cool.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the stuff that's in this issue has been put in because
it's cool.
Somebody thinks it's cool. Well, would it be cool? It'd be a great story, but we don't have that yet. So I'm hoping we might get there.
Yeah. Okay. So moving on as well, we have the retailer exclusive. Now this is New York Comic Con 2020 classic toy art. I say classic toy; it's the 25th anniversary artwork, but it's known as the classic toy art. And this is his version 2. Like I said, 25th anniversary card art, and it's him and Timber. Obviously, this is always going to be nice to see. I do wish we had the original artwork at use here, because I think the 25th is okay, but there are certain elements of it they've obviously had to change to make sense with the figure that came out. It wasn't exactly the same as the original, you know, the kind of little pockets on the kind of ankle details on the figure weren't there, so they just went with the boots. And so there's certain aspects of it that just look a little wonky to me in the artwork. What are your thoughts?
You can't beat the original artwork from, you know, from the 80s. The 25th anniversary stuff, I don't think it's as good as the original 1980s artwork, but it's nice to kind of have that in there. I mean, it is a great homage to the toys. But that said, it's not difficult to get your hands on good digital reproductions of the 1980s carbacks. So we have 3D Joe's is the source for that artwork, and I'm sure Hasbro would have no hassle getting some high-res files that they could reproduce from Carson.
I'm sure they have it as well. Like they must. I mean, other than maybe that artwork being lost or not kind of utilized anymore or whatever, but they definitely have that to scan. I mean, you know, or maybe they just want to use the 25th anniversary stuff to get use out of it, possibly. But in any case, that's that cover. Then we move on to even more. We've got loads. I mean, we've got two more here from Big Time Collectibles. They've got two covers. They've got, it's Miko Swayan, colours Alan Quah, and the Komikaki Studio. And the two covers are completely different. It's one is Snake Eyes holding a semi-automatic weapon with, and it's beautiful art, I've got to admit, it's gorgeous. And then you've got these kind of like four shuriken on to the right of the page, but to the left of Snake Eyes, and they've each got a character, like a Cobra character, and you've got Storm Shadow, you've got Cobra Commander Destro, and you've got Zartan. This is really nice, and again, you've got that subtle Arashikage logo in the background as well, which is like, I didn't notice at first until I saw it from a distance, but this is nice, isn't it?
These covers here are phenomenal. I mean, this is comic book art at its finest. These are magnificent, and compared to the covers we just discussed previously, they're in a different league. This is like the Premier League of comic book covers here. I actually wish I had these particular covers in my collection. I got the cover A, came my copy in the post, but I would love to have my hands on the Big Time Collectibles, either A or B. I actually prefer the Storm Shadow one.
Yeah, so we do have that B one is really nice as well, and then we'll talk about that now. That Storm Shadow one's wicked. So he's like effectively looking at Snake Eyes, and you can see, and he's got the sword in front of him, so you can see the reflection of Snake Eyes in the sword, which again is like gorgeous detail. And it's almost like it's reflecting, it's not the exact pose obviously that Snake Eyes is pulling on the other cover, but it almost feels like that's the sim, like he's just turned up and Snake Eyes has moved his sword in front of him, so now they're about to kind of battle. And they've even got the kind of like the red color from the other cover in the sword as well. So I kind of, it feels like they're kind of together, but they're not in the same way. But that's a really nice one as well, and it's a really cool one. You can just about make out the Cobra sigil on Storm Shadow's chest as well. It's really nice, and again, like very detailed, gorgeous thing.
Magnificent.
And then we get, again, like these are again some gorgeous covers here from Eastside Comics exclusive covers. There's three of these. A, B, and C. We have the John Jiang art for the first two, and we have a Kirill Repin cover for C. Now, I have to admit, the John Jiang stuff just looks amazing. Like the detail, the level of kind of insane quality on these covers are just next level. You've got Storm Shadow, who again, like he's gone with a completely different style here. Like you've got obviously got the sleeveless version. He's got a tattoo up there, which he doesn't have that tattoo normally there. It's on his forearm, but it's nice that they've, kind of thrown that in there too. But like the detail on the clothing, the hood, the way it like hangs on his head. Then before we get to Firefly, obviously, but this Storm Shadow one's wicked, isn't it?
This is like Hollywood movie quality artwork. If there was a new G.I. Joe movie in the cinema, where hey, hopefully there will be soon, that would be one of the posters. The way they do like a series of character posters to promote a movie. Yeah, that would be one of them.
Yeah,
and obviously we're going to get to the next one now in a sec.
Oh, Firefly. Jesus. Out of all the covers, this one is my absolute favourite. And now I'm a big fan of the classified version of Firefly, which this one takes a lot from. Like you can see there's a lot kind of going on here that that, you know, you could easily see in the kind of classified design too. But the detail on like the gloves, all the little panels on the gloves, and then like, you know, he's got the little clip that's obviously helping hold some of his web gear together, and like the grenades and just all the kind of, there seems to be an explosion in the distance as well, like in his near vicinity, and it's kind of raining down a little bit of debris.
Yeah.
That's, isn't it the most beautiful thing you've ever seen?
It's magnificent work.
I mean, loads of detail in the scarring on the skin under the mask as well, and like almost like a damaged eye there as well. Like, it's just incredible, isn't it?
Her artwork didn't come cheap, and it's certainly not cheap to do so many cover variants for a story like this, a short series like this. They're packing a lot of money into this, but to be honest, the real value is that all these variant covers, I think, because the artwork is superb. It's magnificent.
Yeah. And then we have the Kirill Repin cover. Now, he's been quite, you know, he's done a few actually recently. I mean, I'll let you take the lead on this one. What are your thoughts?
This is a very, you know, badass and also equally very sexy Dawn of the Arashikage.
Yeah.
Obviously coming down from, you know, from the ceiling, some sort of, you know, attack pose. It's probably the last thing you get to see before you get sliced and diced. And it's not a bad final thing to see before you go out.
Interesting that he's moved the visor out of the way so you can see her face fully as well, isn't it? Like, that's something we haven't really seen in Dawn covers, that either the visor's on or it's not there at all.
Like, we've seen it in story panels.
Nito
has drawn Dawn with the visor up, you know, several times, but for the most part, it's you know, on his cover artwork, the visor's down and she's going straight in. So it's an unusual take, I think, to see that, but it's a really nice piece of cover art, very, very detailed. It's you know, it's a very beautiful piece.
Very photorealistic almost, isn't it? Okay, moving on. We've got to get through these covers. There's so many of them. This is another actual real highlight for me. I absolutely bloody love this cover. And friends of the show, Indemand Toys, obviously Mass Wells, who's at Indemand Toys, he is a huge Prince fan. And when this cover came out, like when this cover was shown out, this is a Frankie's Comics exclusive cover with A and B, art by Tyler Kirkham. And it is a Prince Purple Rain homage. Now, like I said, Mass is a huge Prince fan, so I remember when I actually saw these, you know, revealed, immediately sent to him. He's like, oh my God, that's amazing. And it's brilliant. It's like Storm Shadow on the motorcycle with a Cobra sigil on it, Snake Eyes in the doorway in the background. It is Purple Rain 100%, and it is bloody gorgeous, isn't it?
This is a great cover. I mean, you've got the, you know, the classic and very obvious kind of Purple Rain homage there, and it's just, you know, and we get two versions of this. We get the color version and the black and white version, and both of them look amazing.
Yeah.
Even just the straight up inked version has that, you know, very kind of film noir kind of feel to it. You know, you've got the wet ground. It's obviously just been raining. Got the smoke around the bike. You know, and that kind of, that beautiful kind of lighting on Snake Eyes in the background, mostly in shadow. It's a beautiful piece of artwork, and the homage to Prince is brilliant.
It's next level, isn't it? Love that. I think that one and the Firefly one are like almost like a level pegging for me. Like, I think those are my two favorites actually out of all these. But then we get Unknown Comics exclusives as well, A and B, and this is Kyle and Ngu, and it is Snake Eyes and Scarlet with, and the two different covers are they're quite interesting. You've got one that's like they're in full color with red blood behind them, kind of dripping down, and then you've got them in almost like black and white with only the red of Scarlet's hair and the red Arashikage logo on the figures, but then like the almost like yellow or orangey yellow blood kind of pouring down behind them, and it's almost like paint, that one, isn't it, in a sense. What are your thoughts on these ones? Because again, like very, very detailed, very beautiful looking in terms of the actual artwork, isn't it?
And again, these are just, it's magnificent artwork here. It's the same illustration on both. It's just two different, you know, color palettes or, you know, color styles. I prefer the more kind of monotonal treatment to the characters with the red kind of just pulled out. But I mean, they're both fantastic. And again, the detail on this, I mean, this is like next level artwork. You would love to have a comic where the whole comic is in this art style.
Yeah, big time.
That would be incredible to get.
Also, I will make one more point there, that it appears to be based on Snake Eyes' classified design as well, with that secondary, that kind of brown web gear that he's kind of wearing at the top there, and the pants. So he seems to be kind of based on his deluxe classified version, which is pretty cool.
Brilliant.
Yeah, and they look, again, I'm quite into those. They're quite nice. Finally, we get the final 3 covers to get through, and that is Rob Liefeld Creations covers A, B, and C. Obviously, art by Rob Liefeld, colours by J. David Ramos on A and Federico Blee on B and C. Now, A is Olympia. Now, this is a character we're gonna discuss in a sec when she kind of
Wonder
appears.
Woman!
Yeah, very Wonder Woman, very superhero-esque, very questionable costume in it. I mean, that is how do you breathe in something like that, is what I'm going to say.
Oh, here. I mean, it's... We'll talk a bit more about Olympia when we get into the story, but I mean, look, let's talk about it as a cover, right? So you have this very dynamic kind of pose.
Yeah.
Olympia's there. She's looking pretty badass. Obviously the windswept hair. You've got like debris and smoke coming up in the background.
Yeah, lovely effect.
It's actually pretty dramatic.
Lovely textural effect, yeah.
Highlights, on her left-hand side. I mean,
yeah.
It's really nicely put together as a piece of artwork. So as a cover, as a piece of artwork, I think it's on point, and I think it's actually better than the cover A and B that we saw at the start, which came from Rob. I think it's a really good cover. Obviously, the character and what the hell is going on in the story is a whole separate conversation. So I think that works really well. And then I like this cover B. Well, we've got the red Snake Eyes, and I think this is a nice partner for the cover B that we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
Where Snake Eyes is kind of standing in the red background, and the smoke around his kind of knees and ankles. This is a nice kind of counterpart for that. And again, he's in his red costume now. Again, we'll come to that as well a little bit later on. And then the final cover here is I'm just ripping through these, Chris, so don't mind me, right?
Go for it.
It's just kind of, it's the weakest of all the covers. The last covers, we saved the worst to last. And it depicts one of the scenes, one of the fight scenes from inside the comic, where we have this kind of hulking giant looming over Snake Eyes, who's looming over an unconscious Scarlet.
Yeah. So that leads us then, I guess. We might as well just get moving, you're right, because we've been on this now for about 6 hours. And that is the majority of this comics burst is going to be about that, because the story is very fast and very kind of, 3 things happen. So the issue opens on the ancient battle between Thor and Kurgan in much the same way as we were introduced in issue 1. Was it 1,238 years ago? Kurgan is striking Thor and gaining the upper hand, as it were, but that's all we really get. And then we move almost immediately into what's going on in the issue. And that's basically quickly over to the present day, a classified location, which actually turns out to be a secret island. And we have Snake Eyes and Scarlet, with the latter Scarlet narrating the story, because obviously, for some reason we can't ever hear of Snake Eyes saying anything or doing anything. What's interesting to me on this one is she talks about not enjoying silence, which is obviously something you're going to get with Snake Eyes. And she also mentions, based on the fact that when growing up she had a lot of siblings, a lot of brothers, and the household was very noisy. I thought that was a nice touch there by Chad. She was obviously doing a lot of the fill-in script work here. But a nice touch in there, and does kind of hark back to Scarlet's big family. Yeah,
I mean, this is, I suppose this is kind of a nice little kind of interaction with where Scarlet is basically doing all the thinking and all the talking.
Yeah.
Because, Snake Eyes isn't going to ever do that. And, nice touch by Chad to build in a little bit of that kind of background character in there to put it into context. And, Scarlet is clearly frustrated. She's frustrated the way we, the readers, are also frustrated because she doesn't know what's going on.
Yeah.
Because Snake Eyes isn't telling her. And we don't know what's going on either.
Yeah.
So if we flash back to issue number 1, it ends. Kurgan hops on a helicopter. G.I. Joe are ordered to stand down. And then all the G.I. Joe team, without really discussing it, decide to go rogue.
Yeah. Now
we're in some place that we don't know how they got there or where it is. And how do they know Corrigan's even there himself?
Yeah, this is all. I mean, I think what we're being led to believe here is that Snake Eyes is leading the way because he knows more about this than anybody does. Obviously, that kind of previous history has not really been explored yet 100%. so we don't know much about it, but we do find out a little bit later on, I suppose a little bit more, that there's even more of a connection between Snake Eyes and this kind of dead game scenario. But it really is like very loose at the moment, shall we say. But anyway, another interesting thing that pops up here, Brian, is the fact that Scarlet refers to Snake Eyes as her ex. So we've got a little bit of relationship previous going on here as well. And that's almost at the same point where the Intruder turns up. Now, the Intruder is an interesting kind of G.I. Joe and Action Man reference from the mid to late 70s. They were enemies of G.I. Joe and were described as strong men from another world.
It's the Action Man team on patrol looking for the Intruder, strong man from another world. Action Man spots him with his eagle eyes. Too late. The Intruder's got Tom Stone in a vicious bear hug. Atomic Man lets him have it with an atomic right. The Intruder is stunned, but not for long, and the chase is on. Action Man checks out underwater in the Seawolf, the Action Team submarine that actually dives and surfaces. No luck. He takes to the skies with his turbocopter and spots the Intruder's hideout from above. This is a job for Bullet Man, the human bullet. That'll flush him out. And here comes Action Man in the capture copter. Mission accomplished. Action Man.
Now, it's a very obscure reference. It has come up before in, dare I say it, but the Aubrey Citizen run, where the Intruder was used actually as an ally, I believe, in Scarlet Strike Force. I suppose the less we talk about that, the better. But we're seeing the Intruder again. What were your thoughts when you first saw this one burst onto the page?
Well, I mean, the Intruder obviously is probably a little bit too, what's the word I'm trying to find here?
Obscure,
oblique of a reference, or obscure of a reference for me to get it. So I didn't know there was a connection there with kind of Action Man or
You're
G.I.
gonna
Joe.
love the figure when you see it. It's hilarious. It's like, you look at it and you think, how is this anything to do with anything? But it is.
And I missed the Aubrey Citizen run. Just at that particular time, I was on a comic hiatus.
Yeah.
So I wasn't reading any comics at that particular point. So I missed out on all that. It was actually the Revolutions that kind of got me back into reading G.I. Joe again.
Yeah.
So when this character first showed up, I didn't really know who he was or what the reference was behind it, but he looks pretty badass. And you see this kind of massive fist come out of nowhere. Scarlet and Snake Eyes kind of duck out of the way.
Or get pummeled. I think they might actually get hit, actually, in this sense.
It's, well, I mean, this guy is nuts. He's a total berserker, and him and Snake Eyes essentially go at it. So it's our first big fight of this particular issue, and it's I'm going to say fair play to Rob Liefeld. This is a pretty badass fight scene.
Yeah, very dynamic.
It's a nut job. Snake Eyes is giving him everything he can give him, and he can take as much punishment as Snake Eyes can dish out.
Yeah. And
even when the swords are kind of brought to bear, he's like, the Intruder's like, me not scared of fancy knife. and eventually, Snake Eyes kind of pummels him, kicks him, slices him, punches him, and ends up, and this is great how he ends it. Just pulls out the two pistols and boom, 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 shoots them all the way to the edge of a cliff, and then finishes them off with a flying jump kick, which takes him over the edge. And it's really, it's very fast paced. I mean, this fight pans out over 1, 2, 3, 4.5 pages.
Yeah, it takes up a lot of the comic. Absolutely.
Well done. It's well executed.
Yeah, totally. And then we realize, or we find out, that Snake Eyes has kind of been doing this almost to kind of make a point because he's being watched. And the narration has actually switched at one point. So we go from like Scarlet, who's kind of got the red text, that where she's talking. She's actually trying to talk with this Intruder, trying to like talk him down. They realize that Kirigan is actually his master, and that's where the fight ensues. And then the narration goes to this yellow color, and it turns out that's this new character, Olympia, who kind of has been watching from a distance. And while Snake Eyes has done what he's done, she kind of like flies out of nowhere and throws a bunch of poison shuriken at him. hitting him and then obviously like, you know, incapacitating him to a degree. But the fight ensues. He sort of holds his own despite being poisoned. And again, this is another thing. Like we've just seen this Kurgan, not Kurgan. We've just seen this intruder fight that's lasted how many? Like 4.5 pages. This is another one that goes on for a while. Like there's a half page, obviously the other side of the intruder. Then you get this kind of double page spread, and then another double page spread, and the fight is still going on. Then it's revealed that the poison that was on the shuriken is kind of affecting Snake Eyes. Like some of his black costume is torn away, and you can see that his skin has gone red. And I'm looking at it thinking, okay, yeah, so the poison is making him go like a red color. That makes sense. Okay, fine. She then obviously, while the poison takes effect, she then grabs him and is like, right, off we go. And like we'll find out a little bit later, something weird happens, but I just don't know what's going on at that point. Scarlet is about to shoot her, like she's got her in her sights, and that's where Storm Shadow comes out of nowhere as a Cobra agent, out of nowhere. And he he puts her to sleep with this like the caress of the sleeping blade. So you can see like in that one panel he's got his sword against her throat, and then she's asleep. So there's like that kind of, you know, Arashikage kind of bit of mystic ninja stuff. And you kind of think, well, if he's a bad guy, why is he not just taking her out? But I guess the point here is that he needs her for the ensuing battle. There's something more at stake here than just Cobra versus Joe, so he's aware of that, and he's obviously after, you know, he's obviously looking for Kirigan as well, and that's where we get this present day 1900 hours undisclosed location, and we've got Olympia with Snake Eyes now completely red, not his skin but his costume.
Yeah, like,
explain yourself, Brian Hickey.
You know, I don't know.
Yeah. Have they made him a red costume to wear? And clearly his skin was turning red, wasn't it? I'm not going mad. Phoebe even thinks so. She just told me herself then. She barked it.
It definitely looks like his skin is like his costume's torn away and his skin is red. She's got her mask is all kind of busted up there. Oh, Snake Eyes busted the mask. No, see her mask when she subdues and captures Snake Eyes is all intact.
That's another issue, definitely.
Well, it's all busted up when she's back in Corrigan's lair.
So is that are they insinuating that she's still had issues to deal with Snake Eyes, even though he's been kind of incapacitated? But you're right, that shouldn't be the case. That makes no sense either. So there's a couple of things there that have happened that you're just kind of like, what? So anyway, Olympia takes Snake Eyes to Kirigan, right? This is where we find out that Olympia is Kirigan's daughter. So it's like, okay. And then we also really find out that Olympia and Snake Eyes have a bit of past. They have a bit of history here. And she thinks that he is the you know, a good rival for Kirigan. He's moaning at it because he's already bested Snake Eyes and thinks that this is like, you know, an insult to him for her to bring this rival to him. See, even Phoebe thinks the same thing. And then we find, and like in his kind of anger, he's like, okay, well, fine, we are gonna, you know, try you as the rival. And then he hangs him over the edge of this ledge, and we have this giant snake that's come out of nowhere. And Brian, I'm in exactly the same boat as you. I have no idea what's going on. Whatever, right?
Oh dear. I mean, you know, it's nuts. It's absolutely nuts what's going on here. Now, okay, just for a second, you have to remember Snake Eyes, even in Larry Hama's universe, he's not normal. He's a superhero character. What he's able to do is, you know, it's inhuman skills. So he is a superhero. So maybe you take the point that you take the point of view that Rob Liefeld is creating a superhero Marvel-esque type in scenario with these G.I. Joe ninja. And fine, okay, that I can get my head around. That's all cool. A little bit of supernatural, a bit of magic, some superpowers.
Yeah, that's nothing. Yeah, totally.
But you need to put it in a story that you can actually follow and that makes sense. What the hell is Storm Shadow doing there in the middle of nowhere, just suddenly appearing in the story?
I mean, like you get the feeling that some of this stuff will like explain itself, but then there's other stuff that probably won't explain itself. And I guess like Storm Shadow is just working for Cobra, and they both have a similar thing, that this Kirigan guy is a problem for everybody, not just, you know, not just for the good guys. But it just like this kind of particular thing here, like all of a sudden now he's got to do these trials, I guess, and one of them is against this giant monster snake thing. And again, like let's face it, this is not the first time we've seen a giant monster snake in G.I. Joe. We had an episode of the Sunbow series where Serpentor is revealed to have this giant snake as a pet, and lives in this like almost like mountainous kind of volcano type thing. I think that was My Favorite Things, the episode. And again, you know, like that's quirky, it's interesting, it's, you know, fun or whatever. And now we've got like a massive snake for not no reason, but there's not really much explanation going on here. And you know, again, we could just wait for the next episode, the next issue, and then go, it's explained. But, you know, so now we've got this like giant snake thing, which kind of, you know, it's not necessarily out of nowhere, but it doesn't make any sense, does it?
I'm trying to reconcile issue 1 and issue 2. Kurgan is this thing brought back from the dead after maybe centuries buried in the snow. And he's some sort of corporate agency or body fly a helicopter in, order G.I. Joe to stand down. So there's obviously somebody with political pull and power and influence, and they fly Kurgan out of there. Now, here at the end of issue 2, he seems to be in like his kind of palace or castle or his base.
Castle
and he's got his intruder guards, he's got his Olympia daughter, and he's got his pet snake living in a big pit. How did he get here? We don't really know. That's not explained to us. And even if this place existed for centuries, who's feeding the snake?
You know, there's some of it I think is just like you're right. I think it's kind of put in there just to be kind of cool. None of it makes that much sense. But when you have to like, there has to be some element of storyline, I think. Like it can't just be this loose all the time and just, you know, on to the next big ridiculous thing. And again, I think we'll find out in the next issue, but, you know, why is Snake Eyes and Scarlet like on their own in this scenario? Why is it not the whole team going in? I don't know, just there's a lot of questions that might be answered, but probably also we'll just have more questions at the end of it.
I think we had Joe Colton, Roadblock, Tripwire. I mean, they were all in that kind of first mission, and we're all like, yeah, gung-ho to go rogue and track this guy down. Where are those guys? You know, and obviously we have had, at the time of recording this, issue 3 has been released, and we've already read issue 3. So even though we're not really going to refer to it, we know that it's still not resolved by the time we get to issue 3.
Yeah.
So
true.
Issue 4 is really, and issue 4, I'm going to have my issue 4 next week, hopefully. So what I'm hoping is that we're going to get it's a lot of retconning that's going to bring all this together, all these loose ends, because there's a lot of loose ends, and it's going to make some sense before we get that final showdown.
I would also argue that it's probably not as complex as we want it to be. I think it's actually just a case of, you know, it's like move on to the next thing without really a thought of why. And like, you know, I just think that's what we're going to get with the series. It's just going to be a series of kind of rather crazy mental things going on, which, you know, has its place as well. But I've got it. Let's talk about the overalls in this, because I must admit, it kind of lost me. From the first issue, I was kind of interested, thought it was really well done. This has put me out there a little bit of like, you know, I don't really know what to say about it. It just doesn't really strike me as being that great.
You know, I'm going to say that on the positives, well, firstly, on the negative kind of things, second to everything you've said there, I don't really know what the hell is going on. And we're a more sophisticated audience. Like when we were maybe, 40 years ago, when we were like nearly 10, or in some of our cases over 10.
Yeah.
Cool shit was all we needed to enjoy something, right?
Yeah.
But we've had, 4 decades of amazing storytelling, both in comics and in cinema and in TV. we're now a much more sophisticated audience, and
Says you.
this isn't stuff. Cool isn't going to cut it anymore. These comics are made for adults. They're made for mature audiences. They're not selling them to kids. You need to dig a little bit deeper on the character development and on the story development to get buy-in from an adult audience. And it happens in comics. There's some great storytelling out there. It's just, I don't feel it's happening on this particular comic. That's the negatives. The positives, the fight scenes are pretty badass. He doesn't skimp on the fight scenes. He spreads them out over 4, 5, 6 pages. If you like action, this is action packed. It's really good. The artwork on it is, again, Rob Liefeld style. I know it's not for everybody, but I really enjoy his style in this, and I think the color work throughout this issue is very, very tasty.
Yeah.
In particular, I would really like the color work throughout. But all that said, I don't think the positives are enough to outweigh the negatives for me. So I'm going to be coming in with my lowest potato scoring ever for a comic.
Wow.
I'm going in with 2 on this one.
My goodness. Okay. I wasn't even going to be that brutal with it, because I think what you said there, like especially the back end of what you said there with the colouring and the artwork and everything, there's a lot to really enjoy about it. I think actually this issue is drawn even better than the first one. I think there were a few issues, weren't there? Like a few elements in the first issue, like Timber's head looked a bit wonky, and Roadblock was drawn like that Captain America, like old Liefeld Captain America thing with a huge barrel chest and kind of like wonky proportions. But like overall, this issues look really nice and really like, the exaggeration has worked on the Intruder. The looks of all the characters look really, really cool and have been designed really well. So they're drawn really beautifully. So I was kind of coming in more on a 3-star on it for that. And when you said 2, I'm like, blimey, I'm gonna have to find where, if we've used a blimmin'. I think we have used a 2 in the past. I think Paddy's definitely used a 2 in the past. I'll find it. But yeah, I'm going to go with 3 on this one, giving it a bit more generous on mine. But that's a first. I don't think there's been a comic where you've gone lower than me.
I'm usually around the 4. That's the lowest I would go, as a 4. I mean, I really enjoy the G.I. Joe comics. Even the Sierra Muerte series, which I don't think we even did a comics burst for that.
Actually touched that,
because we didn't particularly. It wasn't really a hit with us being the full force group. But even that, I would have gone in with a 4 on that one, had we done a burst. But I just feel the ideas in this particular story so far feel a bit half baked to me. But I could be proven wrong by the time we get to issue 4, and I would happily be proved wrong. And if Rob Liefeld turns this around and blows it out of the park in issue 4, I'm going in there with 10 potatoes. but right now, I'm reserving that judgment.
Yeah, cool. Oh yeah, well that kind of that brings us to the end, I guess, of this one. My goodness, that the funny thing was, before we started this, we both talked about this, and we were both like, yeah, this will be like a 10-minute job. And I think the covers obviously took a bit of a while to get through because there's some really nice ones in there, but we ended up with more to talk about than we normally do on these things. So that's quite interesting and quite funny. But yes, Dead Game 2, interesting. Again, like the first issue we were kind of into. Second one's been a bit of a drop off, but we've got issue 3 coming up. That'll be the one we do. I think we're doing that next. And then we've got issue 278 to cover for A Real American Hero. We're also going to do ROM, and we're going to do Castlefall. So we've got a lot to finish. That ROM one we have to finish. That's like the last issue of that series as well. So it'll be nice to put like a little bow on that. But we are trying to catch up pretty quick. Brian and I are doing 2 a week now.
Disorder Battle, Operation Bloodhound, Part.
God, how long is that taking? Jeez. Anyway, yes, thanks, Brian, mate, for jumping on. Really appreciate it, buddy.
Look, my pleasure. Loved it.
Thanks, Garden Shed Game. That's it for this instalment of the Full Force Comics Burst. Thank you to my awesome co-host, Brian Hickey. See you next time, and as always, Full Force! Make sure you get involved with the discussion by liking, sharing and commenting on these videos, and as always you can keep up with the show after listening by following on Twitter @The Full Force, liking the Facebook page facebook.com/The Full Force, and if you would like to contact the show you can message us on either of those platforms with feedback and questions. We also have a Patreon page, so if you want to show your support for the show, see your name up in lights on these videos, or enjoy exclusive bonus content, then check out patreon.com/The Full Force Podcast, or click the link on any of the posts this podcast appears in. Full Force.